there's no better way to understand communications other than to have experiences. So a lot of my classes, we are talking about when you experience this, when you dealt with this. What does that toxic relationship look like? What does the healthy relationship look like? How do you handle conflict is one we just finished. We're in small group communication now, but we just talked about conflict. Most people run in the opposite direction for conflict. And I told them not all conflict is negative because, I mean, we still be enslaved, right? Remember that conflict?
Mm-hmm. Right.
So we were able to get out of slavery. That was a huge conflict because people didn't want to let us go. They had volunteer workers, right? Involuntary volunteering working. And then,
I need to sit with that one for a minute. All right.
but then we moved right into Jim Crow, which was another conflict.
Mhm.
And from Jim Crow, we moved into the civil rights movement.
It's a
And
show
so,
right now on Netflix called Amen. Will Smith is it's a series that Will Smith is doing,
uh-huh.
and he starts off talking about Frederick Douglass and the movement into um, why are we slaves? And then I think the next episode was Abraham Lincoln actually freeing the slaves. And the whole, exactly, the whole politics behind him actually freeing the slave, but he exposes that it was a political tactic because they were losing the Civil War,
Mhm.
um, and so I do that. And somebody even told me once, when you have all four coins lined up, the penny, the dime, the nickel, the dime, and the quarter, all of the nickel, the dime, and the quarter are silver, and everybody is looking this way. But the penny is brown. It's the lowest value, and Abraham Lincoln is looking this way because they say he turned his back on his people
Mm,
or whatever. So
that's powerful.
yeah, and my mom, she used to give me a little history lesson. She asked me who Abraham Lincoln was. Well, she asked me first who George Washington was, and I was like, he's the first president. Um, and well, I do remember the Abraham Lincoln though. That's how it started. Who was Abraham Lincoln? I said, yeah, he's the president that freed the slaves. And my mom was like, what? Who told you that? I was thinking like, well, maybe that was George Washington. Like who? But she was like, "Is that what they teaching you in school? I'm gonna have to pull you out of that school." But that's what she said, that he didn't free the slaves for freedom, not through the Emancipation Proclamation. And I've heard it in movies called the Emancipation Procrastination.
Right, right.
Yeah, but the motive behind Abraham freeing the slaves was not for freedom
Mhm.
of people; it was to win the war.
And the reason why it was such an uproar was revenue. So greed has been with us just as long as anything else we've ever had in this life. There are certain people that are not going to be satisfied. They could be killing the game, killing it. Billionaires, a couple of times over, and they still will be trying to figure out how to get more money. When is enough enough?
Mm-hmm.
Where's our balance?
Mm-hmm.
You know, maybe you want enough money to buy an island. Do you need enough money to buy five? You know what I mean? Like, where do we, how do we curve our appetite to say, okay, here's a healthy balance? I'm
Well,
able to do.
I think it's more about generation for I mean, wealth for the next generations. Your financial wealth lasting through the generations. Um,
Mhm,
Beyonce has in one of her songs, I think it's Boss. She said, "My great great grandchildren are already rich," and so
mhm,
I don't know necessarily if it's about just if it should be about just collecting all the money now, but creating systems might be the best way to create systems.
And I understand creating generational wealth. I get that. But we have some people that are not just doing that, they're just greedy. They just want everything, like they're gonna take it with them. Like, oh, okay, I'm almost out of here, but give me my money, all of it. I want everything.
Well,
Or they'll leave it behind for a pet. Who needs a wealthy cat? You know what I mean? Like, you got so much money that you're not doing anything collectively to impact either your family or future generations of people. You know what I mean? If it was strategic and the fact that other people would be able to build, that would be different, I think, right? But we got some people that's literally trying to take this money with them to the grave. And I mean, it's over by that point. There's nothing you can do with that. So if you want to help to build like foundations, the philanthropy, that's different. You're trying to impact lives. I love to see a legacy like that lives, because it's touched this generation and the generation after it and the generation after that. We were talking about movies, we were talking about Amend, two of my recent favorites. And I think about this in terms of communication, because I can't get away from that, right? One was Judas and the Black Messiah, the Fred Hampton story. I am so amazed at the lengths that Hoover jumped through to kill off people who were benefiting their communities and uniting people. It literally was like hatred and division trying to conquer love and unity. And so to think that Fred Hampton was only 21 years old when he was murdered, the vision that he must have had for the community and the people, because he wasn't just uniting black people, he was uniting Hispanics, he was uniting poor whites collectively. And when we hear about the Black Panther, we don't hear about that. They even had international chapters. So, and they had a strategy, a 10-point program, right? So there's one. The other story I looked at recently that I absolutely love was the Billie Holiday story. Because people will have you think that she was just a drug addict who could sing. But her song, Strange Fruit, was about, hanging as a little girl. She saw Black men hanging from trees. And the lengths that the government, once again, went through to silence her voice.
So
they were paying her boyfriends and husbands to set her up with drugs, even when she was clean. Go ahead.
I didn't see that story yet, but it's definitely on my to watch list. The Strange Fruit. Two things. I have a history book somewhere where they have pictures of bodies hanging, and families, including their kids, like taking pictures with them, posing with them. And I read somewhere, and I don't know how true this is because no one has really collaborated this story, that they would cut off piece of the bodies and sell it as souvenirs. And there's a rumor, I don't know how true this is, but this is a rumor that the word picnic is pick a nigger. And so that I know people who don't say the word picnic, they say, gathering, celebration, or whatever for that reason. So I don't know, maybe some truth to it, but.
Well, a lot of the tradition, and people don't see it, is still systemically embedded in our cultural norms. Black Friday, that was actually them selling off sales, Black folks at a discounted rate. It's where we get Black Friday from.
Now I knew Black Friday was for Christmas. Maybe they changed it, but they said most businesses don't make their money until right before Christmas. So it said their books would be in the red all year, and then
Mhm.
the week before Thanksgiving, when they start the Christmas sales, they would make so many sales that their books would now be in the black. And that's where I
Black
had
Friday.
Black Friday, but I had not heard it going back even further than that to or for this meaning here. That's a new one.
Well, I'm gonna share another one with you, and this one may shock you. I watched an interview with Bill Duke, the Black actor. He kind of came up at a time around Sidney Poitier. That was his era. And he gave this interview and he talked about what they called nigger barbecues. They were barbecuing Black people,
Ooh.
skinning them alive. I have even seen pictures. Yeah, I've even seen pictures of these bodies just burnt beyond reckon. It really gives you like chills. It just sends chills down your spine of what they had to do, what they had to deal with
Mhm.
during that time. Like we focus a lot on Emmett Till being 14 years old and brutally murdered for complimenting a white woman.
Mhm.
And we focus on Rosa Parks with the bus. But there were some things happening way prior to a civil rights movement, which resulted in the need for the civil rights movement. And so I love Billie Holiday's story because she was in that era. Yeah, grandma was born in the 1930s, like the
20,
mid 30s. No, she
26,
was what?
1920.
No, she was born like 1930,
If it's not 26, it's 36. Because
36. It's 36.
okay.
So this was around the era of Billie Holiday when she was singing this song, and people tried to paint her as just this drug addict.
Mhm.
But it was because of the things that she was seeing. And if you notice, a lot of people in the entertainment industry or in the arts, they would go live overseas where
Mhm.
it was life was easier than being here in the United States,
Mhm.
where we would still be considered colored and still not able to look at white people in the face, having to turn our head and get out the way and be degraded and all that kind of stuff. A lot of them went someplace else where they had this peace. They wasn't worried about their life. James Baldwin was one of a prolific author who did this. He
I think
left.
Dean Baker too, right?
Hmm.
Yeah.
So a lot of them did that because over there it wasn't always death looming over their head, and so they cuffed Billie Holiday to her hospital bed, her death bed,
Mhm.
while she was in the hospital, 44 years old.
Mhm.
So I don't know, I know that's close, like in your range. I don't think you want to tell people how old you are, but can you imagine?
43. I ain't saying right. If I was handcuffed to the hospital bed right now.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Um, the Black Panther Party, Bobby Seale in court. They were trying to try him or convict him in court with no representation, and he requested a continuance until his lawyer could come, and it was denied. And so he said, "Okay, I'll represent myself." And they told him to shut up and they wouldn't let him talk. And he kept talking. He was insistent. And so we're talking about the 1960s now. They gagged him in the courtroom, tied him down and gagged him so he couldn't talk. And he was still defending himself with the gag in his mouth.
Mhm.
So there are things that we've had to overcome in this era that prompted this movement because we were experiencing such horrific acts. I can't even imagine somebody trying to skin me alive or barbecue me. Barbecue? I love barbecue, right? I can't picture being the barbecue.
Right. Right.
Just horrific acts against human beings.
You know, I know you mentioned to me before that one of your assignments for your students is to write their eulogy at the age of 86. What
Mhm.
is the impact that they plan to have on the world where you encourage them to think forward about how they want to live the rest of their life and the impact that they have on it. And when you talk about like even these entertainers, these aren't all entertainers that we were just referring to,
Right.
um, I struggle with the a little bit of the entertainment industry. I never really uh well, as an adult, I didn't really listen to the radio a lot. After
Mhm.
high school, I stopped listening to the radio.
Mhm.
That's when neo soul was kicking in. I became a neo soul girl, and when I would hear the artists, the Jill Scott, the Erica Badu, Mary J. Blige, that was me. To find other music that sound like that, not necessarily R&B, but neo soul, I had to kind
Right.
of degree it a little bit. And so that's one of the things that pulled me away from the radio, considering that we only had four radio stations and they played the same songs all the time. When you turn the station,
Mhm.
it could be all four songs was playing. I mean, the song would be playing on all four stations at the same time.
Mhm.
So that was one of the things that really kind of moved me away from radio. And I started buying tapes and my CDs and stuff like
Mhm.
that. And now we have internet streaming where you have full control over the music you put out and what you listen to. And
Mhm.
I'm so appreciative for that. I know I went off on a tangent, but I did want to definitely touch on the eulogy project that you have. Some of the notes that um, advice you gave me as I was developing this program was who would I have been today if I would have known this 20 years ago? Putting some thought behind that, and then asking who am I now. And I have write the pros and the cons. uh,
Mhm.
so when we talk about some of the challenges that historically we have gone through and the entitlement of this generation,
Mhm.
feeling how they deserve things, and this wasn't that long ago. This was not even 100 years ago.
No.
We have evolved
Mhm.
in a
Mhm.
lot of ways. There's still a lot more to go, but
Right. I think some of that is good old fashioned immaturity. Like when you're immature, there's this attitude of being invincible. You could do it all. You can argue, and I'm just talking about me specifically. I could argue every injustice. Whenever there was foul play, I just had this energy, right? So I would challenge everything instead of really engaging in thought and taking that multi perspective, right? Because I had what I felt and what I thought, but I didn't necessarily know what you thought, or I didn't necessarily know what this person thought. I just had this very strong, overwhelming emotion. And I think some of that is still happening today in our current young people generation, right? They don't often think about these other perspectives, how it makes up the whole. Okay. And I think that's something that kind of comes as you get older and you evolve and you have experiences. But there is technology is one thing that has made us extremely lazy, right? When I was a little girl, I remembered all my friends' telephone numbers. I still know what the house number was, like,
yeah.
right?
Mhm.
Now, I'll be like, dang, what's my number? When I got to write my number, somebody be like, give me your number. I'll be like,
Right.
it's 708.
Mhm.
But, having to our memory and our critical thought process is being very, very limited, even in the age of Google now, right? So anytime you don't know something, hey, Google, tell me, or Alexa, tell me.
You hope people do that because people will be like, "Can you tell me?" I'm like, you can Google it.
Right. And so that's the other thing I was going to say. That's how lazy our thought process has gotten, that we want to be spoon fed everything, every little bit, every nook and cranny. And so we come from this generation, right, where they said, teach a man how to fish and he'll eat for a lifetime. And if you feed him, he'll starve to death, right? If you're not willing to keep doing that. And so I think this generation has flipped that on its ear. Not only do we want this immediate gratification, everything we want it now, right now, 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 not later, now.
Mhm.
And so you remember the candy like I do. We had candy that said now and later.
Mhm.
Now later's was the best, okay? And this generation, that's another aspect. Remember, I was talking about being invincible, right?
Mhm.
Want to fight everything. This next thing is patience.
Mhm.
We don't have any patience for anything.
Mhm.
Nobody wants to wait on anything. We're just like, right now.
Mhm.
So there are places that I would go to that I knew I was going to be there all day.
Mhm.
I would take a book with me
Mhm.
because I knew, and a sandwich and a piece of fruit or a
Mhm.
snack, because I knew I was going to be there for a long period of time.
Mhm.
There wasn't this expectation that I was going to be in and out.
Mhm.
And I think our expectations now, and this leans back to technology, right now, everything right now. We're even trying to get rid of our face to face interactions. So I can point out the toll road, right? Now you have to have the pass. If you don't have the pass, you're paying twice the fare.
Mhm.
Self checkout in the stores, the companies are tricking us,
Mhm.
you know, because if I'm gonna go in and pack my own groceries, I need a discount. I
Mhm.
want some money off. I got to pack everything. Hold on. So now they're eliminating part of the workforce and kind of sliding us on in there, getting us comfortable doing all this stuff for ourselves. But then technology is taking over with the mind because we don't have the interaction. We're not having these discussions to sharpen one another, to talk about this exchange of ideas, to set it up where other people can come in and express ideas. So some of us are doing this, but the other portion of us have gotten lazy and we're the baby bird. We want everything fed to us. So
Okay.
go ahead.
So, in contrast to that, right? Let's look the
Mhm,
other side of the coin. The technology makes things more convenient. It makes it sometimes faster and more efficient. Yes,
mhm,
we do lose jobs. Because I heard like even the transportation when Chicago started selling the tokens. I mean,
mhm,
the cards. Because the bus drivers and train station workers cannot accept cash. And one of the theories was that they would steal the money.
mhm,
So this way, the company can control. Um, they can collect all the money without people stealing the monies.
mhm.
Um,
Okay, you can come back to it, but I think what has happened, I'm not saying technology is bad. I'm
mhm,
saying how we've internalized it and use it. Some of the stuff is good, but it's made us really lazy in using our brain power, being able to think, using the critical thinking skills, and figuring different things out. And so, with that, we have to be mindful. It's not that the technology is bad, it's the fact that we've allowed it to make us lazy, right? There are certain things that we just don't want to think about. We're going to let the technology handle all of that. There are people that are using it, of course, in ways that are less productive,
right,
more harmful,
right.
right?
Mhm,
Because now we have more access. Let's even talk about cancel culture.
mhm,
Before social media, cancel culture wasn't really a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's a priority.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not that I don't agree. If you don't want to shop with somebody or you don't want to listen to somebody, I don't think you should. Don't, do something different. However, if you say something that I don't agree with, am I supposed to go and recruit the masses to try and shut down what it is you're trying to do? And I think that's where that's the line that we're drawing now. We're recruiting numbers. What happened to being able to agree to disagree? I think we've lost this respect for somebody else's opinion.
Mm-hmm. And see, I'm careful with that. With the whole cancel culture, I do like the idea of social media exposing more things. And you mentioned it can be used for good or bad, right?
Right.
Even though there's a lot of foolishness out here, but there's a lot of um, good things. And
Mm-hmm.
so I've never, well, I'm not one to watch a lot of make believe, the non, the, I don't do a lot of nonfiction in my books or television. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and the thing that I like, because I don't necessarily watch the news either, because it is so depressing.
Negative. Mm-hmm.
The stories that they tell are not a real reflection of what
Mm-hmm.
is happening. And just like the radio, there's everybody's telling the same story. Nobody has
Mm-hmm.
no news. The news right now is getting their news off of Facebook. By the time my dad tells me he's seen something on the news, I say I saw that on Facebook 3 days ago as it was happening. Let me give you the updates that you haven't got on the news yet.
Right.
Now, at the same time, it can be used to educate and or manipulate, right?
Mm-hmm.
Somebody tells a story, it goes viral, and then we have the MythBusters out. They've been canceled and all this kind of stuff. Then we'll
Mm-hmm.
have MythBusters come out and say, "Well, here's what they didn't tell you. Here's the part of the story that you didn't know. Here's what."
Mm-hmm.
So even still, you have to. I feel like it's more information out there to be able to validate um,
Mm-hmm.
or disprove a story. Like if this was, if Emmett Till story had happened during social media time. So, and I heard on her deathbed, she recanted that story. Um,
Mm-hmm.
that it wasn't true. So ideally, in the age of social media and all the exposure and camera phones, maybe somebody would have been able to say, no, that's not what happened,
Somebody would have recorded it.
or something, right? Right. Or the confrontation, you would have seen the confrontation when it
Mhm.
happened or something, right after it happened or something like that. So,
Yes.
but I'm very careful to be aware of people on social media and the media period, and including the masses that try to puppet me. You know,
Mm-hmm.
if I don't like something, if you don't like something, something comes out and now you want to turn me against it. Right now, there's a story about Kirk Franklin getting really assertive with his son, and I haven't seen the story myself. I mean, I haven't seen this recording, but what I've been seeing is the people who are for and against it, who's exposing it. So right now, social media is leaning towards support for Kirk Franklin. This is what I've been hearing and feeling. Um, Even it sounds like that maybe somebody did try to sway it in the opposite direction. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, initially, but social media from the feeds that I'm in is gathering behind him. And so that's what I mean. Like, I'm just reading the reactions of people,
Mm-hmm.
you
Mm-hmm.
know, not the actual story. But if I wanted to, I can go in at the drop of a dime and I can see multiple accounts of the story and then kind of determine what's true and what's not. So I appreciate that. I do
Mm-hmm.
not subscribe to TikTok just because the people who I know, who are the videos that people share with me on TikTok, It's
Mhm.
all humorous. I would say that. And ain't nothing wrong
Okay.
with, I kind of like that they even filter it out so I don't have to be on TikTok myself. I get enough forwards from people where I have enough TikTok and I don't have to subscribe to it myself. I can
Right.
get a break. It's like a commercial break from others.
Mhm.
Like, okay, let's see what foolishness is out here. Ha ha ha. Then I can reset and go back to
Mhm.
intentional projects. So
Well, you talk about when we think about this technology, right? Here's what I think what happens. You were talking about some of the things that are posted that are negative, right? They try to post them in this light and that light and all of these things that are bad, 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 bad. But do you know why they put that out there? Because people like drama.
I got you.
That's the whole reason it's out. So we physically, as people, need to be responsible when it comes down to that because they're just feeding the narrative. It's just like any other media platform where sex sells. So they're putting it out there. You got the beautiful girl with the beer, or drinking the alcohol and attracting the guys, or whatever the case may be, or the guy doing it. Then there's fear. Fear is another wonderful marketing tool, right? They'd be like, if you dying because you coughed twice, stomped once, and swung and missed. Now you need this drug because it'll enhance your performance and you'll be sure to live a lifetime. And
Mhm.
people are like, I can live a lifetime?
You mean except for
Yeah.
the side effects that cause bloody diarrhea,
Right.
bleeding,
Exactly. Exactly.
suicidal
Which
depression?
which they get real low when they tell you that part, right? That's like the small print. They be like, warning, this can cause, and that be real low. But when they be saying you can live a lifetime, that
Mhm,
be nice and loud, graphics, it's
mhm,
aesthetically pleasing.
mhm,
All the weight loss commercials. I can't tell you how many times I'd have failed for that. I'd be like, you know what?
mhm,
Yeah, because I could it helped to create this whole picture in your head of how you gonna get back to being skinny,
mhm,
right? Um, but it's fear, it's self-concept, it's sex. Like they use all these things to create this kind of fantasy. That's why what they call them rom-coms, romantic comedies are terrible for women to watch